Thanks so much for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham. The Ebola virus could spread exponentially in the coming months. That is the warning that is coming from the World Health Organization. It is asking governments and organizations around the world to ramp up their support. The prediction comes as a fourth American Ebola patient flies home for treatment. Our Heather Sells has the latest.
The Ebola epidemic has already killed more than 2,000 people in West Africa. That makes it the biggest outbreak ever, and it's only the beginning. The World Health Organization is predicting thousands of new cases in the coming weeks. In a report issued Monday, it predicted the outbreak will take 6 to 9 months to contain and may infect up to 20,000 people.
The longer the current outbreak goes on, it's really inevitable that we will continue to see additional spread worldwide.
The Pentagon is sending a 25-bed field hospital to Liberia to help treat health workers who have contracted Ebola. The World Health Organization is asking governments to triple current aid efforts to battle the explosive outbreak. In Nebraska, Ebola patient Dr. Rick Sacra remains in stable condition. Doctors there say they're comparing notes with Emory Hospital in Atlanta, which already treated 2 Americans with Ebola and expects a third today.
It's virtually the same strain, and I've been on the phone to Emory people every day.
Federal officials say they sent Sacra to Omaha instead of Atlanta to help prepare other isolation units in the U.S. to take more Ebola patients if needed. The virus is now spread to 5 countries in West Africa. Governments are doing everything they can to contain the disease, from imposing nighttime curfews to ordering multi-day countrywide lockdowns. Nonprofits are also stepping up efforts. Operation Blessing's David Darg told CBN News' Mark Martin that churches in Liberia are working to encourage prevention.
We have Ebola prevention teams. These are church volunteers that are going out into communities, handing out literature, warning people of the signs, telling people what to do if they have symptoms.
Authorities are most concerned right now about Liberia. It's the worst hit by the virus and suffers from a shortage of doctors. Since the outbreak began, it's lost more than 70 healthcare workers to the deadly virus. Heather Sells, CBN News.
President Obama meets with congressional leaders today to outline a broader plan to combat the ISIS terrorists. The president has said his new strategy will degrade and eventually defeat the terrorist group behind the recent murders of 2 American journalists. But officials say the plan stops short of U.S. troops engaging in a ground war, and it could take a long time to complete.
Our global coordinated campaign with a global coordinated coalition will be built not just in a matter of days or weeks, but it will be built to endure for the months and perhaps even the years to come.
Meanwhile, intelligence officials say they've figured out the identity of the British ISIS terrorist who beheaded the 2 Americans. And the British paper The Mirror reports an elite FBI team is preparing to capture some of his fellow jihadists in Britain. Severe storms continue flooding cities across the nation, leaving at least 2 people dead in Arizona. The record rains are wreaking havoc in the Southwest. 3 inches of rain made for Phoenix's wettest day ever, turning roads into lakes and in some areas more like rivers.
A big tidal wave just came up and just totally took me out, and it flooded my truck.
We had calls in the hundreds of people just stranded, flooded out cars, accidents, people sliding off the roadway.
Arizona's governor declared a statewide emergency. In Nevada, an Indian reservation was evacuated and an interstate shut down after 4 inches of rain fell in just 2 hours. The East Coast is also experiencing major flooding. Officials in coastal Virginia say 30 inches of water covered some roads, and the rain just keeps coming. Parts of the East Coast are expecting 6 to 10 inches of rain in the coming days. The IRS says it has lost even more emails, this time from 5 more employees who are also part of the congressional investigations into the Tea Party targeting scandal. The tax agency said in June it could not find an untold number of emails, and those were coming from Lois Lerner, the former agency official who refused to testify to Congress about the scandal. The IRS blamed computer crashes for the latest lost emails and says it hasn't found any evidence anyone deliberately destroyed those emails. Home Depot confirms millions of customers could be at risk after hackers accessed its payment systems. Shoppers who use credit and debit cards at the company's more than 2,000 stores in the U.S. and Canada are endangered. The home improvement store is the largest retailer to suffer such a data breach. It's potentially bigger than the hacking of Target's database last year. That resulted in theft of $40 million in debit and credit card numbers and possibly exposed personal information of more than 70 million shoppers. America is facing an even bigger financial danger. Some say the U.S. is on a path to economic ruin thanks to the dwindling dollar. But can anything be done about it? Take a look.
Money is one of the most misunderstood topics in the world today. Since the United States abandoned a gold-linked dollar more than 4 decades ago, critics say the world's governments have become dangerously ignorant of the fundamental monetary policies that guided the most successful economies for centuries. In his new book, Money, How the Destruction of the Dollar Threatens the Global Economy and What We Can Do About It, leading economic expert Steve Forbes says wrong-headed monetary policies are setting the stage for a new global economic and social catastrophe that could rival the recent financial crisis and even the horrors of the 1930s. He also says it doesn't have to happen if America returns to a sound and stable currency.
We had one for the first 180 years of our existence. All a gold standard does is keep the value of the dollar stable. Like 60 minutes in an hour, 12 inches in a foot, the dollar has a fixed value, fixed to gold. It doesn't mean we have to use gold coins or anything like that, but it just means the dollar has a fixed measure of value, which makes transactions easier, makes investment easier. You know, investing is risky enough, but if you don't know whether you're going to get back a 100-cent dollar, 20-cent dollar, 80-cent dollar, you get less investment, which is one reason why our economy is stagnating today. So how it would work, Pat, is let's say we set the value at $1,300 an ounce. All it would mean is if the gold price goes above $1,300, you stop creating money. If it goes below $1,300, you create a little more money. It's like cruise control. It's very simple. And again, we did it for 180 years. And if we'd maintained the growth rates of the average growth rates of that 180 years, if we'd maintained that in the last 40 years, our economy today would be 50% larger than it is today. Imagine the economy being $8 trillion bigger. Life would be a lot better than it is now. So when you undermine money, over time, it has a very disastrous and dangerous impact.
Now, you can hear more comments in the full interview with Steve Forbes. Just check out our website, cbnnews.com. Family, friends, and admirers pay respect to Chick-fil-A founder Truett Cathy at a public viewing at First Baptist Church in Jonesboro, Georgia today. He'll be buried in a private family ceremony on Thursday. Truett Cathy was a man of faith, and that's reflected in many of his guiding principles and policies, starting with Chick-fil-A's corporate purpose, which begins to glorify God by being a faithful steward to all that is entrusted to us. He also advised business people to put principles and people ahead of profits and to invite God to be involved in every decision. He encouraged his restaurant operators to give back to their communities by supporting local schools, hospitals, and little leagues. Of course, he's best known for the policy of closing on Sundays, sacrificing potential profits to take a day of rest and to honor God. Dr. Kathleen Patterson of Regent University's School of Business and Leadership joins us now with more. Now, is this day that he observed people ahead of prophets and God what really set him apart?
I think his love for biblical principles is really what set him apart. And those were outplayed with things like being closed on Sunday, putting people and principles above profit. Just think if we had business leaders today putting those biblical principles into action, having people be the primary concern and then the profits, it would change the scope of the business world.
Absolutely. Some do believe that Christianity and business don't go together. And of course, he proved otherwise. Would you agree? He
absolutely did. He did things that were so contrary to human logic and what we hear business principles are. When you make a decision that's an ethical decision that's based on your people first, you are choosing to enable your people to take care of the profits. It's an interesting thing that happens.
Indeed. I think he said something to the effect of turning the lights off on Sundays when the store kind of shined its brightest. Closing on Sunday did cost the company potentially billions of dollars a year, but he believed it was worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it. And we see that with how successful Chick-fil-A is, how well their company is run, and how well they're doing even this far into their business. When they made the decision to glorify God, when they wrote that as their purpose statement, the very next year they had a 36% increase in their profit margin. We would give anything as business owners to have that type of increase.
Absolutely amazing. Before we let you go, what would you say is Truett Cathy's legacy?
I love Truett Cathy. There's so many things about him. He advocated Proverbs 22:1. A good reputation is better than great riches. And he not only believed it, and that comes from his third grade experience, by the way, but he believed it, but he lived it. You can believe the Bible, but are you living it? And that's exciting. Truett Cathy did that.
And looking ahead, I imagine you think that the family will continue to run the business just the way he left it.
Absolutely. He was a strong family man. He had priorities, and he kept those priorities.
Indeed. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and insight.
Oh, my pleasure,
Thank
as
you.
in the Chick-fil-A way. So.
All right. Thank you so much. Coming up, Faith Under Fire, how a campus ministry is being targeted for its Christian principles.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
The nation's largest university is enforcing a rule that could cost the Christian group InterVarsity up to $460,000 for the new school year. Cal State University says it will not officially recognize any student groups that enforce leadership requirements based on religion. The Christian group refuses to bend its belief requirements to accommodate the new rule.
We estimate that it will cost each of the 23 InterVarsity chapters serving Cal State campuses up to $20,000 a year to rent rooms, generate awareness, and meet new students if we are unrecognized in the coming year. We may be unrecognized in the coming year, but we will not be off campus. InterVarsity is committed to grow our current ministries and to plant new ministries in the Cal State system.
InterVarsity has asked for support from outside donors and for prayer as they embark on new ways to accomplish the purpose and vision of the group. A Massachusetts public school district says it will continue its working relationship with a Christian college despite its stand against homosexuality. The Lynn Public School District has been partnering with Gordon College, a private Christian school in Boston, for about 11 years. The district uses volunteers from the college as mentors and tutors in its public schools. But when the college requested a religious exemption to the federal workplace protection for gay and lesbian workers, district administrators opposed the action and ended the partnership with the evangelical school. The school district has since reconsidered its action. A U.S. federal appeals court in San Francisco is hearing arguments over whether gay marriage will harm children. Supporters of same-sex marriage say bans are harmful to children because that tells them they are from the wrong kind of family. But opponents of gay marriage say same-sex marriage undermines the right of a child to be raised by a father and a mother.
There's only one message sent by an exclusion of same-sex couples from marriage, and it's the message of indignity and stigma sent by an exclusion that's class-based and that says that these families are inferior.
You know, Nevada, the coalition, they would see a 2 or 3 or 4% increase in fatherlessness as a great, great tragedy.
State and federal court judges have been striking down bans in more than a dozen states since last year. A Catholic Missouri lawmaker is continuing the fight against Obamacare's birth control mandate. State Representative Paul Wieland is contesting a lower court's rejection of his challenge. He says the required contraception coverage in his state-sponsored insurance plan violates his family's faith. Wieland's attorney referenced the Supreme Court's decision that companies with religious objections can opt out of the requirement. The federal government argued group insurance coverage can't be individually tailored for each employee. Up next, from a deli to D.C., it is the unlikely career path of the new majority leader. Congressman Kevin McCarthy shares his story. Kevin McCarthy grew up in a family of Democrats, but now he's a Republican star as the new House Majority Leader in Congress. David Brody sat down with the California congressman to get the inside story of what's next.
Kevin McCarthy is a people person, whether it's hanging out at Luigi's in Bakersfield.
Good seeing you again. Take care. Tell the family I said hi.
Helping Republican colleagues campaign across the country, or taking the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Now that was a little cold.
Kevin McCarthy oozes happiness.
How are you? Good to see you.
It's a skill that's helped him get where he is today.
Kevin McCarthy is going to be the new House Majority Leader.
After just 8 years, he made it to Majority Leader faster than any congressman in history.
What a meteoric rise. I mean, what do? Do you just kind of scratch your head and go, really?
Yeah, I get shocked just being able to get into the building.
McCarthy's ride has been an interesting one. He grew up in a family of Democrats, but became disenchanted in the 70s while listening to Jimmy Carter.
I was in elementary school, or early junior high, and he put a sweater on and told me the best days of America were behind me, and I had to accept it and to turn my heater down.
Then along came Ronald Reagan's vision.
A Republican Party raising a banner of bold colors, no pale pastels.
McCarthy was sold, becoming a Reagan conservative.
He's a happy conservative.
Right.
And why is he happy? Because he knows the conservative values gives greater liberty to the individual.
And that's how McCarthy describes himself.
I believe in being a happy conservative. That you're happy because you know your policies will give people greater freedom, greater independence, right? But you have to explain that, why your policy makes life better.
And that's what liberal Hispanic groups want him to do regarding his stance on immigration. Constant protests outside his office demand movement on comprehensive immigration reform.
You got to make it where there's legal immigration. And the system currently doesn't work well. But our borders are not secure. The president has given a false belief that someone can come here illegally and they'll just become a citizen. Well, that doesn't make society strong, never has.
McCarthy's plan for a strong society includes a jobs and energy agenda, which would include construction of the Keystone Pipeline and less environmental regulation.
They're too bureaucratic. They try to legislate, and they hold back. I mean, they have these shackles upon the growth of what we can actually create.
McCarthy knows a thing or two about creating growth. At just 19 years old, he opened his own deli after winning $5,000 in the lottery.
You learn a lot in a small business. You can be the first to work, last to leave, and last to be paid.
He then sold the deli and used that money to put himself through college.
I don't come from an Ivy League school or anywhere else. The only way that I can do better than someone else, maybe they're better at something else, but they'll never beat me in work. The work habit that this place taught me is what I will apply myself harder. I will work harder at it.
As a high school tight end, he also learned another value, teamwork. His coach always told him the word team stands for together, everyone achieves more.
Sometimes I take those same thoughts and theories and apply them in Congress, right? A lot of times people just want to be an individual, but if you really want to win at the end of the day, it's not about you just achieving something. Everybody could achieve more if they work together.
So how can he bring Tea Party conservatives and moderate Republicans together?
What's the key to building consensus? How do you do it in Congress, maybe in life? I mean, how do you do that?
Well, lots of times I find a lot of people just want to go in and say, this is the way you go. I think the first thing you have to do is listen. You know, and to me, that's a little bit of wisdom.
McCarthy does ask one thing from his Republican colleagues.
I've always told the members as being a whip, you vote your conscience, you vote your district, just don't surprise me. I just want to know what's going to happen.
He works to avoid surprises by building relationships, whether it's in the gym, early morning bike rides, or even sending out handwritten thank you notes. But the relationship he values most of all is with his wife, Judy.
This position has been held by people before. It will be held by people after Kevin. So, you have to make the best of it, but that doesn't define who you are.
And what does that for Judy? She points straight to her faith and accepting Jesus Christ at 13.
It completely changed my life, and it defines who I am. I mean, you can't say faith without Judy because we're one and the same. I mean, it's absolutely who I am.
For the majority leader, however, outwardly expressing his faith wasn't a part of his Catholic family's lifestyle, but he found a way.
I had a friend down the street that had a junior high program at First Baptist Church. So I would get up in the morning on Sunday, my family's still sleeping, and I'd run down and I'd go to church with another family just because that's where I really learned to grow in Christ.
And he will need to stay grounded to avoid the pitfalls inside the Beltway.
You're determined that Washington is not going to corrupt you.
No. We're going to change Washington.
And he's determined to do it with a smile and firm determination, even if it takes some time.
And sometimes it's not fast enough. It's definitely not fast enough at times for me. But as long as that compass is pointed in the right direction and it's moving forward, I mean, you look at Ronald Reagan, that's the goal of what we would have. But you don't give up. You come back the next day for what you couldn't get the day before.
David Brody, CBN News, in Bakersfield, California.
And finally this hour, Operation Blessing is helping students go back to school in the country of Myanmar. One primary school in the war-torn region of Karen State was abandoned and nearly destroyed as a result of conflict in the area. But after peace talks, families are returning home. Operation Blessing has teamed up with Asian Tribal Ministries to improve the condition of the school, supplying building materials, a generator, and a clean water unit, as well as tables, chairs, textbooks, and other supplies like notebooks. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Today. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a terrific Tuesday, everybody.